Hi Trinity, happy Wednesday. I hope you guys are hanging in there. Hey, we are going to dive right into our mini lesson for today. This is Wednesday's mini lesson. If you have not completed Tuesday's mini lesson yet, do that before you start this one. You can take out this sheet of paper. It says Wednesday mini lesson at the top. It was either emailed to you or you picked it up at school. There are 4 pre-lesson questions on there. I want to make sure that you completed that, and then we're going to move into reviewing them. The very first pre-lesson question is, what is a podcast? Podcasts are going to be audio-only programs like a radio talk show. We talked last lesson about what a vodcast is. That means when you're going to have your audio, but there's also going to be a visual component. You are absolutely allowed to do a vodcast if that's what you choose to do. How will I create a podcast? And we haven't really gone over this yet, but I'm just going to kind of introduce you to some ideas. We're going to be learning some programs like GarageBand, Audacity, Movie Maker, and iMovie, and we're going to be using more than just this. So we're going to be working with some free programs too. So if you're looking at these 4 items and saying to yourself, I don't have access to any of those, don't worry, we're going to be using some other elements that are free downloads that you can download onto your computer or onto your phone. And then there are also features within your phone that I think you can use. Next question, where do I get my inspiration for a podcast? Well, we've been working on that the past couple days because we're doing all pre-write this week. We're doing just brainstorming. So a couple ideas for where you can get your inspiration is using They Fought for Justice, some of the people within that book that we read together. You can go through the brainstorming topics that I sent you. You also have that what is wrong in the world that you want to fix or change. And that's a good way to get your topics. Some of these ideas are presenting an argument, such as why a certain holiday should or shouldn't be recognized. A big debate is always Columbus Day. Should we still celebrate Columbus Day? Celebrating a culture by providing more information about Black History Month, Hispanic Heritage Month. You could share a biography of somebody that you feel is really important to the social justice movement. One of the movies that I just saw was called Just Mercy, and it's a movie about a man named Brian Stevenson, who's just an amazing social justice attorney. And wow, what a cool thing to study his life. He's living on this planet right now and is trying to work with how we kind of treat the incarceration system. You can also do an explanation of a popular cultural activity. You can do a movie, a book review. There's a whole list that I sent to you of things that you can get your inspiration for, but just remember your topic must center on social justice in some way. So again, these are listed things wrong in the world, your social justice topic suggestions. Those are all good places to find this information. Next, what are some guidelines for making a podcast? Well, yesterday in our lesson, we reviewed these 5 different concepts. Having a topic that's introduced very early into your podcast so that people know what they're going to be listening to. You want to be answering really one main question. Now you can answer a ton of questions within your one main question, but you want to have one main question that you're looking at. You want to have a script. We talked yesterday about how every podcast, every radio show, it's all scripted. It may not sound like it, but it is. It's scripted and practiced. Yesterday we also talked about, it adds a lot of interest when there are multiple voices that are going to be heard in my podcast. And those voices could be a fellow student, but you can also interview somebody like a parent. You can call and phone somebody in on an interview, which would be a really neat thing to do. So you can really get creative with this. I've had students in the past interview a bunch of different people, even their own grandmas, about things that were happening during the Depression era. And my particular grandma was interviewed by one of my students because she was orphaned as a child. And so just kind of get creative as far as who you want to interview and who you know. And then make sure that you're adding sound effects or music just for interest Remember copyright rules, that you want to make sure that you either own the rights to the music or you're creating something on your own, and that's where GarageBand kind of comes in. So we're going to dive into our note and notice portion. Note and notice is going to be at the bottom pardon me, of your paper, and we're just going to listen to a couple minutes of a podcast right now together. You can listen to it on your own if you want to, but I'm going to definitely be pointing out different elements to notice. You also have this sheet underneath there that says podcast response sheet. Right now, as we're listening and practicing, I'm going to start filling one out with you as practice. Then you have one due to me for tomorrow, where you're going to just kind of go over the podcast of your choosing. So let's hit our podcast here. Great sound effects to start.
This is the Biology Podcast. I'm Liza Gross. That deep-throated rumble, as you probably can tell, is the calling card of the African lion. Though both males and females roar, only males sound like this.
I'm going to pause up for a second. We just started with our name, easy to fill out, the title of the podcast. If you look at the title of the podcast and you're thinking it's Rethinking Lion Conservation, you're absolutely right. So I would put Rethinking Lion Rethinking Lion Conservation. The actual podcast is on National Geographic, so I would include that in my title as well. And then it says, what is the topic or main idea of the podcast? I'm assuming it's going to be lion conservation, but you never know. So that's probably what I'm going to fill in next.
It's how they signal their presence and scare off the competition. But if recent projections are right, your chances of hearing that iconic call in the wild are running out. According to a study published last month in PNAS, we could lose half of Africa's lions within 20 years, and it's largely our fault. Africa's population is on track to double within 35 years.
Okay, so I just had some facts that I heard right there that I might want to include in my note section. They're saying that the lion population could actually be cut in half over the next certain years. That's good information for me to put down. Remember, that's data, that's proof, that's evidence. And this is an estimation, so I'm assuming she's going to tell me a little bit more about where that estimation is coming from.
People means less habitat for lions and their prey. It also means more conflict. There's no doubt lions are dangerous animals. They kill people and livestock, so villagers routinely kill lions in preemptive strikes. Poaching and poorly regulated sport hunting are also taking a toll. As an outraged world discovered last summer, even lions living in protected national parks can fall prey to hunters.
There is intense outrage online and around the world tonight directed at an American hunter who killed a beloved and well-known lion in Africa, reportedly luring the animal out of his protected sanctuary before taking aim.
Okay, I'm going to pause right there. These are some notes to be adding as well, that even though lions are dangerous animals, it's not an animal that we can live without. And one of the main problems that we're hearing right now is that there's hunting and poaching that are happening.
An ecologist and associate professor of environmental studies at UC Santa Cruz. He spent years studying how mountain lions adapt to human development near Santa Cruz, south of San Francisco. He recently spent 9 months studying African lions in Kenya.
All right, now she's telling us a lot about the man that just spoke. Why? Why would she tell us all that information? It increases his credibility. She's explaining why she would have him speak on the podcast. Why are we listening to his voice specifically? As we're listening to more of this, we're hearing again that conservation idea that's coming up. Do lions need to be conserved much more judiciously? Thing. So let's go back to our sheet. We're about 5 minutes in, and that's all I wanted you to listen to for practice. You want to think of 3 ideas that you heard from the podcast that you want to put down. They don't have to connect to each other at all. It just has to be 3 interesting ideas. So one interesting thing that you might write down is just what we heard, that in Kenya, they rely so much on their livestock that if there's going to be a lion that's threatening, eating their livestock and attacking their livestock, that they have to kill the lion so that they can keep their livestock. Let's go back to what the structure is in our podcast. This is a conversation. It's not even an argument. This is really a conversation where people are bringing up what their opinions are, what their biases might be. And so you can just put down that the structure it's a discussion. It's conversation between these interviewers. And so far we've heard 2 voices. That might change. Now that we've practiced a little, what you're going to do is move on to the second part of your sheet, which says that you're going to complete this podcast response sheet after you've chosen one of these podcasts. It doesn't have to be one on my list. You could listen to something completely different. We talked about Audible. Audible has a lot of good podcasts on it, as well as your phone. So you can just kind of check in, and that is your homework for today. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. Bye.